What is going on, everybody? Welcome into TTP Sports. And man, oh man, time sure does fly by very quickly. And I'm not trying to do it as a pun for Fly Eagles Fly, but we do have football back. Training camp, obviously, been going on for weeks. And now basically we're one day away from the NFL regular season, from the Eagles' first game in Brazil, out of all places, tomorrow against the Green Bay Packers. And, thought it would be better time than never to finally get in an Eagles preview, get in a little season preview, as I have Phillies versus Marlins in the background, as I have Ranger Suarez completely making me go worrisome with his velocity drop, but that's besides the point. The point right now is for Eagles, the Birds, Jalen Hurts, this offense under Kellen Moore. How is Vic Fangio going to reshape this defense that has a lot of question marks going into this year? There definitely is a lot of question marks just for this Eagles team as a whole going into this year. Expectations, that are being shown from the front office, from Howie Roseman, from Jeffrey Lurie, still are clear signs that these guys want to win a Super Bowl. They want to contend for a Super Bowl. They believe they can contend for a Super Bowl. And I would like to have my expectations there. I hold my expectations where the front office should be. But right now, I have a lot of question marks about this team. And what I'm going to say is probably going to come across as, I would say, more on the negative side, or more just very maybe concerning or something like that, just because there's, not some sure things about this team that I want to see as the season progresses. It's mainly on the defense. There also is a little bit on the offensive side too, specifically the offensive line and depth purposes there, because I don't think this offensive line has any depth whatsoever, especially when you lose Jason Kelce. Now that you're going to have, Cam Jurgens play in that center position, where he hasn't played at the NFL level, even though he was drafted to be Jason Kelce's replacement. Jason Kelce, basically hand-selected him for the Eagles front office, so there should be something there, but, it'll be his first full season playing in the center position at the NFL level, so there definitely is an adjustment period to that. And, for the offense in general, still got Jalen Hurts, who I believe should be healthier going into this year. I still think last year's version of Jalen Hurts, even though there were some good moments with him, he just didn't look right. And obviously that has to do something with the offensive play calling with, Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson, even though it was more of a Nick Sirianni problem than a Brian Johnson problem. Brian Johnson was more of the face to blame there until, you get all the stuff that comes out during training camp, from Tim McManus, Jeff McLean, and all of that stuff. You see all the reports, oh, it was actually Nick Sirianni's offense and all that stuff. And it was kind of obvious at the end of the day, but everything finally came out. Then you get all the stuff, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, not on the best of terms right now. But like I said, that is besides the point, and we'll see how this season progresses with the way that it goes, if that does become more of an issue with, between Jalen Hurts and a Nick Sirianni relationship. That's going to depend on the record this team has. That depends on how things are flowing. So we're basically going to wait and see process with that perspective right now. Right now it's focused on the games. Right now it's focused on every week of football right here and seeing what the result this team gives us. But, like I said, going back to the offense, you still have your weapons. You just got Jahan Dotson, who is going to be, a very solid third option for you in the slot, where, in Washington, he was probably expected to be the first or the second wide receiver. And yes, the drop issues definitely are in play. That is a given right there. But maybe, with him being in a position where you have other teams so uber focused on the film work, on trying to play around, on trying to defend guys like A.J. Brown, obviously one of the best wide receivers in the game, and also Devontae Smith, one of the best wide receivers in the game. You got two people that you're trying to your defensive playbook around in the passing game, and maybe that leaves Dotson open at some points to where he can slip by the defenses, and maybe Jalen Hurts opens him up for a little bit of a dime action right there. And there's something to work with right now. Like I said, the drops, the drop percentage rate, definitely an issue with Dotson. But maybe, like I said, in a Kellen Moore offense, how Kellen Moore is going to have this offense more stability, actually use motion, and everything right there. We'll see how it goes. we'll see how it goes. You also add Saquon Barkley into the mix, one of the better running backs in the game, and it looks like the Eagles, just from the perspective that I've looked at it, it kind of feels like they're trying to make this like the Christian McCaffrey move that the 49ers have, and how Christian McCaffrey completely turned or completely elevated that 49ers offense into basically the juggernaut that it is today. So maybe the Eagles are trying to go into that type of route when you have a top back in the league, when you have all these weapons in the wideout position, you have your franchise QB and Jalen Hurts. You just got to find a way to mesh it all together, and that's what Kellen Moore is supposed to do. And 100%, I believe this offense is going to be 20 billion times better than what it was last year because Nick Sirianni does not know how to call an offense whatsoever. It was completely just on par last year on how bad the offense was with Nick Sirianni under the helm. And we kind of experienced that a couple of years ago too when Nick Sirianni first came into the league, where it was mainly his offense, and then partway through it went to Shane Steichen, and then the offense improved mightily. And then the Super Bowl year, obviously, that was all Shane Steichen. And then, yeah, you promote Brian Johnson to the OC, but it's Nick Sirianni's playbook that we're calling, and it wasn't good whatsoever. So I do expect a creative mind like Kellen Moore, who has been in the league for a long time, to get this offense back into shape and have it to be a very productive and a very high scoring offense. That's what I expect this offense to be. And that's where all the expectations should be because you have so many weapons. You have so many fantastic players. If this offense crumbles and completely just does not produce, then there is a major problem. There is a major problem right there. And like I said, it is a wait and see process. We'll see how it is in action week 1 tomorrow in Brazil. So that definitely is something there. And then going to the defensive side, that's where mainly all of the problems lie. All the question marks lie. I would say for first half that defensively, I think your secondary is probably the most short position because you have Darius Slay on the outside. You're most likely going to have Quinyon Mitchell that's going to play in that position as well, offside of Slay. I believe Kelly Ringo is also going to be in that purpose. Avonte Maddox could be in there in the safety valve, but never with Avonte Maddox, he's always injured. Sidney Brown's not ready yet from his injury last season, so that's going to be taking a little bit of time from him to get back. Cooper DeJean basically just got back from his injury in training camp, so he didn't look good really in this first preseason game, and that's basically expected coming off of the injury and not really getting the reps at training camp that he really needed to showcase himself in preseason. So even though he is a Swiss Army knife type of player that can play basically all around the secondary, that's going to be a work in progress because, like I said, he missed so much time with the injury and not getting many reps in training camp. So we're going to have to see what Cooper DeJean develops and how Vic Fangio works him throughout this entire season to where he can get adjusted to this. And basically, these first few weeks for Cooper DeJean are technically his training camp, what it feels like, in my honest opinion. And then basically, where you get to the major question marks of this defense, obviously, it's linebacker because, one, the Eagles probably have one of the worst linebacking cores in football. And I think that is completely obvious. And we saw the stuff earlier. I believe it was from Tim McManus of the Inquirer, talking about Devin White and all that stuff. And out of nowhere, this guy just had an ankle injury and he is not going to Brazil. And it looks like Nakobe Dean is going to be the guy wearing the green dot on his helmet on the linebacking core opposite of Bond. So I don't know what the hell is going on with that perspective. Is it this? Did Nakobe Dean just outright win that position at linebacker, or was Devin White just that putrid like he was in the past couple of years in Tampa Bay, where Todd Bowles basically sat his ass on the bench and said he was not useful, you're not playing whatsoever? And yeah, a lot of Eagles, perspective saying, okay, it's a calculated risk. Is it like a low risk, high reward type of thing because you signed him to such a cheap deal, a 1-year prove it tryout with contract and everything like that? And now it looks like he's out with an ankle injury. He's not playing. It looks like Nakobe Dean is the guy that is going to uh, be the thing, as I just saw Johan Rojas ground out into an inning double play with the bases loaded. So yeah, that's annoying and that's frustrating. That's why I stuttered right there. So god damn it, Johan, why are you swinging at the first pitch? Holy fucking shit. But like I said, besides the point, a lot of question marks there surrounding the linebackers. You really have no threat at linebacker, in my honest opinion. Nakobe Dean really hasn't gotten a chance to prove himself, and when he has gotten his chances, really not that impressive. Last year, he did get injured, and he was basically non-existent when he did play. Yeah, last year in the preseason, he had a couple of good moments, but overall, just the overall quality in the picture of Nakobe Dean, really not that impressive. And third year in the league, technically this will be his second full season playing. He didn't play in his rookie season barely at all. So there's a lot of things it's basically like I keep saying, this entire defensive core, it's just full of question marks, and we don't know what this defense is going to be like. And especially when you're getting to the defensive front, is this team going to be able to get pressure on opposing teams' quarterbacks? That was something that they struggled a lot last year, and especially when Fletcher Cox is now gone. And Fletcher Cox obviously was on the backstring of his career, but he was still putting up very solid production in the role that he was. That is a huge missing piece on that defensive line. Obviously, like I said, with a defensive line that now does not have Hassan Reddick in there, that is a whole drama situation with the New York Jets of him not reporting anywhere because he's not getting a new contract extension. So I have no idea what's going on with that situation entirely. That is just a whole crazy situation there. And maybe that whole thing could have been avoided if Howie Roseman just gave Hassan Reddick a new contract. I'm not trying to go into the perspective of, oh, Howie Roseman's a genius for getting rid of Hassan because of the whole situation that's going on with the Jets. You could have avoided the entire thing if you just gave him a contract, because he obviously wanted to play here, and the dude is worth the money. The dude has been getting double-digit sacks the past couple of seasons. He's obviously worth the money, in my honest opinion, but that was the risk they take. They went with Bryce Huff instead, and I have no idea what Bryce Huff is going to be. Is he going to be as dynamic as an Hassan Reddick could be? I don't think that's going to be the case. What is Josh Sweat going to be? Because there definitely was a lot of question marks, especially in the last part of the season there with Josh Sweat of him not being able to get pressure onto the quarterback. And, there's other question marks as well. What is Jalen Carter going to be in the second, season of his career? Obviously, there were some really good moments last year in the first half. And then, I guess as expected, started to die off a little bit because of the just not being used to a full NFL season. And Jordan Davis, what is Jordan Davis going to be in his third year in the NFL? Obviously, there have been some good moments, maybe some underwhelming moments of Jordan Davis, but is this guy going to be the run stuffer that he was drafted from Georgia to be? Is he going to take another step into his game where he can actually get pressure on the quarterback and he can stay out there consistently? So, like I said, that those are some very, 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 very large question marks that we have with this Eagles roster. And Vic Fangio, dude, has been around the league way before even I was born. That's how long this man has been in football. And I'm sure he'll find a way to get a quality product out of his defense. I don't think it's going to be anything terrible, but it's definitely not going to be worldly best defense in the NFL. I just think there's way too many flaws on the defensive perspective of this team to just completely stand out. There's a lot of young faces mixed in with some veteran talent. And like I said, just way too many question marks. And that linebacking core is once again going to be the Achilles heel of this team, just because they just, if Nakobe Dean just somehow makes his presence known and can be a good player like he was in Georgia, which at this point I just don't expect right now, that's going to be your Achilles heel basically, because we know how crucial linebacking has been in today's version of the NFL. That is like the mainstay of your defense. That is the main threat of your defense. And basically, sometimes it feels like if that goes, the defense goes. If it doesn't go, the defense doesn't go. But yeah, we know the Vic Fangio style here. It's basically been the same thing for the past couple of years with the Eagles going back, everywhere. So, and like I said, that is going to be the major question mark of this team if they can get pressure on the quarterback. Something they really struggled to do last season. Is Jalen Carter going to be able to do that more? And there's also a big question mark, going into the early part of the season, because there's going to be a lot of adversity that this team sees, especially early on with all the travel. I believe your bye week's in week 5, if I'm not mistaken. So that sucks in terms of, you know, it would be more, I would say, beneficial for your bye week to be halfway through the season, maybe like 7 weeks into the season, 8, 9, 10 weeks into the season, to where, okay, we got some wear and tear on our guys. Okay, we're in week 9, we're in week 10. This is when our bye week is. This is a really good time for us to get some rest, to have this very long week off so guys can get off their feet and get ready for the backstretch of the second half of the season, basically, of our schedule. Now that basically is taken away because your bye week's so early on in the year. And you had guys last year that completely fell off a cliff because of the long season. And that was a lot of the young players on your team. So we're going to have to see how some of those players can adjust to that. Mainly like guys like a Jordan Davis who fell off a cliff, like a Jalen Carter who fell off a cliff. And we're going to be seeing that, with guys like Quinyon Mitchell. Is Quinyon Mitchell going to be something that can play through a full season of the NFL without falling off a cliff, basically? So, like I said, just a lot of observations here. And if you're just looking through the schedule, there's a lot of adversity just because of all the travel. Obviously, you're losing a home game, because technically this game in Brazil counts as one of your home games. So that sucks in that aspect. And then basically after that, you follow that up with Monday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons, and then you just do a lot of traveling in general with this team. So there's going to be some things here that are interesting. And I guess basically in the back half of this preview, I'll probably just go over the schedule and what I think this team could be. I think overall, in terms of like predictions and everything like that, I see this Eagles squad, because I think it could vary in any way, because I do believe in this offense a lot. I do believe in all the weapons they have. I do believe in Kellen Moore's schemes and everything to make this offense into the fullest potential that it could be. I do believe in adding a Saquon Barkley to the mix, especially in your backfield, can find a way to bring this offense to an even bigger threat than you think it is at this point. Like I said, comparing it to the Christian McCaffrey thing with the 49ers, look how much he fit into that offense and turned it into, just escalated it even more, if that makes sense. So there's so many things here. Like I said, a more healthy version of Jalen Hurts, who was really good in training camp, barely threw any I think he only threw like 1 interception or something like that. Granted, obviously the starters really don't play in the preseason anymore, so you're definitely not going to be experiencing anything of that, even though Tanner McKee was very good and should have been the backup quarterback. But we're going to have to deal with Kenny Pickett, and that's a whole question for another day. Just in the case that Jalen Hurts has to miss a week or two, do you trust Kenny Pickett, especially with the weapons that he would be having playing in a regular season NFL game? Would you trust Kenny Pickett for a week or two to try to get you a winner or something like that? So that's something that can be in the back of your mind as you go through the NFL season, because there has been certain instances where Jalen Hurts has to miss a week or two and you have to use the backup quarterback. So, like I said, a lot of question marks with this team. And there's even though, granted, you're not going to have the perfect team. That's not guaranteed. And I'm not expecting any team in the NFL to be perfect. It's just do I think that the Eagles can overcome their flaws to be a team that they expect themselves to be, which is contending for a Super Bowl? I don't know. I don't know. And that's the answer that we'll probably get in these first few weeks of the season. Because, like I said, it's so much adversity. And, there's going to be a lot riding on Nick Sirianni, even though he basically doesn't have a job at this point, because he goes into meetings, really has no say in the meetings. The dude doesn't even have a chair in the meetings, if that's even true. But you never know with the way Nick Sirianni talks in press conferences. This dude, basically, what does he do at the end of the day? What the hell does he do? This is not his offense. It's not his defense. He's not play calling, obviously. So what the hell is he even doing at this point? Why the hell is he still even here? I have no idea. It's most likely because Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie didn't want to get flack for firing another coach so quickly. So that's mostly the reason why. But say if this team gets off to a rough start, Nick Sirianni, the leash is going to be really short probably. You're going to get a lot of guys calling for Nick Sirianni's head, most likely in the Delaware Valley. So we're going to have to wait and see. But like I said, a lot of adversity, a lot of travel, and that's probably what this team needs, because They got off to such a great start last year. What was it, 10-1 or something like that? Completely fell off a cliff. And I think this team should be facing adversity as you go into the season because we have to see how they handle it. They got a shred of adversity last year when they lost that embarrassing game to the 49ers and to the Dallas Cowboys back-to-back. They never recovered from it. Now, they're going to be getting a lot of travel. You're losing a home game. Like I said, with all the travel in general, in the first few weeks of the season, it's a lot of adversity to go through. And we're going to see what this team is made of going into that point. And that lies on Nick Sirianni to keep the group together, to keep the guys in the locker room together and keep their heads even-keeled as they're going through this very, very tough first part of the schedule. Because like I said, just look at the travel in general. Like I said, for tomorrow, obviously they're in Brazil playing the Packers. Then week 2, they play a Monday Night Football game. So it kind of does help with the rest purposes there. You know, technically you kind of get a bye week in that scenario. But then you go to New Orleans week 3. You go to Tampa Bay, and then week 3 is your bye week. And then you have some travel after the bye week in New York, Cincinnati. You know, so there's some travel there. You eventually go to Los Angeles. You eventually go to Baltimore at some point in the season. So it's just a lot of travel in these first 5 weeks. So, well, technically the first 4 weeks until the bye week. So it's going to be a lot of adversity for this team, and they need to find a way to overcome that. So basically, if I'm just going through this schedule, I guess a game at a time, trying to see where I see this Eagles squad at. Like I see them as an 11-win or a 12-win team. That's what I see them as. See them going 12-5, 11-6. You can even throw an argument for 13-4. I think all those ranges could be very, very good for an argument because I do think this offense could be that dynamic to where it carries them to a bunch of wins. Not their defense. I don't think their defense will really carry them whatsoever. It's really going to hand on the strings of Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts, and the rest of the offense to really carry the load of this team. And I guess that's what they're expecting to be, and that's how they're expecting to have success this year, is mainly through all the weapons of their offense. So we'll see. We'll see. And like I said, either of those records, you can argue with me and convince me that any of those possibilities can happen. But I think for overall sense, I'll stay in the middle of that range. I'll say 12-5. I think they go 12-5 overall. And if I'm just looking at this schedule entirely now, just to see where I think the wins and losses lie, I do think at the end the Eagles win tomorrow. I do see them winning tomorrow against Green Bay. Obviously, it's a weird environment for both teams. You know, there's so much controversy with the entire thing in general. Some players didn't even want to go down there just because of all the stuff that's going on and craziness that's happening. But I do see Eagles winning tomorrow, and I'll say they start 2-0 in the year because they've seen they've seen Kirk Cousins like 3 years in a row at this point on Monday Night Football. The last 2 years when he was on the Vikings, and this year now that he's on the Falcons. So Kirk Cousins in prime time, not really the best type of quarterback. His numbers on prime time, specifically Monday night, are not good. So we'll see. And it's also the Eagles technically the first home game of the first actual home game in the link of 2024, even though technicality sense, the Brazil game is the home game. So first home game in the link. I probably should have said it the entirety right there. I'll say they start 2-0. I'll say that. Against New Orleans, I don't think is going to be good this year, but I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, I'll say they start 3-0, and I think they lose week 4 to Tampa Bay. That's where I think the Eagles start 3-1 on the season going into the bye week. And then if we look at the rest of the schedule, they start against Cleveland at home, the first game after the bye. Should win that, but Cleveland's defense was really good last year, so there's definitely some question marks. So I'll say they start 4-1. 4-1 against the Giants. You should beat the fucking Giants, even though you had problems against them last year. So I'll say 5-1. Then I think you lose week 8 to the Bengals. I think they lose there. That'll be a tough game. They come back home against Jacksonville. So let's see, it's 5-2, I said. So I'll say 6-2 right there. At Dallas, Dallas usually plays them tough. They haven't been good in Dallas the past couple of years. I'll say they lose in Dallas. So what's that? 6-3. So I can only have them losing 2 more games. I say they beat the Commanders at home at week 11. I think they beat the Rams week 12 in Los Angeles. I'll say they lose to Baltimore week 13. So what's that? So what did I say? I'm even losing track right here. I probably should go to a better schedule and not the Eagles website because of the way they formatted the entire way. So let me look at a better schedule right here. So I said, where am I at right now? This is very unprofessional by me. So I said they started 3-1 on the season. I said they beat the Browns and they beat the Giants. So they beat the Browns and 3-1 before the bye, then 5-1 right there, 5-2 after they lose to the Bengals, 6-2 after they beat Jacksonville. I say 6-3 after they lose to the Cowboys on the road. November 14th, I say to beat the Commanders. That's 7-3, 8-3 after they beat the Rams. So 8-4 after they lose to the Ravens. I'll say they beat the Panthers, so that's 9-4. They beat the Steelers, so I believe that's 10-4, 11-4. I'll say they beat the Commanders. I think they would beat the Cowboys at home, especially if that's a reason to win the division right there. So I'll say 12-4. And at case value, if they're resting a lot of people in the final week of the season, I can see them losing that final game to the Giants. So I can see that right there, honestly. So that's where I see 12-5 right there with this Eagles squad. So we'll see where it takes us. It's definitely going to be a very interesting year. I do plan on tomorrow, depending on scheduling and everything like that, I do plan on live streaming during the Eagles game tomorrow, so that'll definitely be a fun watch if you just want to come in and hang around and react live to the game. Like I said, it depends on the schedule and what I'm doing during the day, and if I'm able to be home in enough time to start live streaming. I'll try to be home in enough time to start live streaming. So, like I said, it's a play-by-ear thing. You'll see something pop up in the subscription feed if you do see it pop it up. So, definitely keep note right there. But yeah. Hopefully, this will be an entertaining Eagles year, even though, like I said, with all the question marks surrounding them, I still think they're going to be a good team overall, just because they have too much talent on that offensive front to be not a good team and not a playoff team. You know what I mean? So, overall, prediction wise, I say 12-5. I'm trying to think. Do they get a bye week? I don't think they get a bye week. I do not think they get a bye week. I think the Detroit and San Francisco has that locked down. So I'll say they don't get the bye week. They got to play wild card. They'll win the wild card round. I'll say they lose in the NFC Championship game, but they won't be playing at home. They'll be playing on the road, and that'll be one of the reasons why. So that's where I have it right there. That's where my predictions lie. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in as Ranger Suarez just made an unbelievable throw to get it out there. Holy shit. But yeah, appreciate you guys for tuning in for the few that did. Can't wait for this Eagles season to start. So don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Does me a great deal of service. And also use the code TTPSPORTS, $20 off your first purchase at SEATGEEK. Great deal. Don't pass it up. Thanks, guys, for tuning in tonight. And we'll probably have a Phillies recap after this game is over. So you'll see me later tonight for most of you there. So at